Hey, Richard Miller here again, Facts for Working People. I'm a little peeved this morning. I just came straight home from Safeway and I wanted to say something about this. You know, I'm down at Safeway, I only bought 2 items. And I've had this, been bothered by this many times. You know, and there's only 2, I think there were 2 registers working. And so there's lines. And as I stood in line there, somebody waves me over to the do-it-yourself thing. So I said no, and then I said loudly enough, which I often do in Safeway. A friend and I were talking about this the other day, how we're always talking politics or doing in some sort of way or another. So I said, no, I don't use that. And there was I said, if we do stuff like that, there'll be no jobs here. You know, I mean, Safeway, as bad as things have gotten with the continued decline, even of the power of the union in the workplace, due to the failure of the leadership to fight back at all, it's still a job with benefits, and it's better than a non-union job in the main. Even if the money's not that much different, which it generally is, you've got a vehicle through which you can fight. It's an advantage. And I turned to some of the customers. I said, if we did that, your kids would have no jobs. These are working class people, you know. We're all working class people. And I said, we should have patience. I said, we should have a bit of class consciousness. That if we all do that, our kids won't have a decent job. And Safeway by many standards. And then I said, they'll be building prisons for them. They'll put them in prison, but this all will eliminate jobs. We're contributing to our own decline. So as I got up to the counter, you know, I said to the woman, I've known for quite a while. I said, I'm sorry. I said, but you know, I said, has your union got a position on this? The UFCW got a position on this? I said UFCW because the unions are so dismally absent from real power in the workplace that a lot of people don't even know who they are. They pay their dues and that's it. And so I said to her, did your union have a position? She said, well, they've talked about it, but and then she looks at me and she goes, but it's still here. I said, yeah, that's about right. And then as I was leaving, I said to another one, I said, hey, you know, I'm not angry at any of you guys. I've been on many of your picket lines. In fact, the last time I was on a big picket line, I don't even think the union leadership had demands on the table. They normally enter these things with concessions. But so I said, you know, it's not you. I understand that. I said, but if we all do that, you know, I repeated the thing. And I asked him also, is your union doing anything about this? Has your union said anything about this? And of course, he just, you know, gives me that look. That I know exactly what that look means. But the problem is, and I want to raise this here, I accept that the responsibility in the main is the union leadership. Leadership has responsibilities. But the thing is you have to do something about this. The rank and file cannot continue to just complain and remain passive. You know, you have to fight back, and that means a political struggle. And it's unpleasant in the sense that, you know, it's a conflict, and a conflict with a group of people, with a force that supposedly is on your side. You have to be conscious in any conflict, whenever you take a stand like that against the boss, you have to be careful, and also against your own leaders, you have to be careful. I was in the public sector, it was a little easier, harder to fire us, but that doesn't mean you don't do it. In the workplace, you're a little safer to a certain extent because some of the union halls are fairly empty of militants, but not entirely. But the thing is you can start to build, and if you start to build a base in the workplace and in the union, then you can challenge them, then you can take them on, and it's something you have to do. So the responsibility ultimately for the crisis we're in here, and for the fact that people go and use those automatic, you know, basically they're getting free labour from us. We're checking ourselves out. I was thinking of going down there and leafleting the customers just to see what sort of response I got about doing that, to think about it for a minute. I mean, to me, any boycott's a secondary to industrial action that shuts down the workplaces, but still it's a secondary action. And but just people should be more class conscious, that you won't have your kids will have no jobs. But the main thing is you've got to fight back. You've got to get involved in the union, and you can affect change in the union, and ultimately we have to affect change in the union. And it's the same even where I work. People don't want. It is difficult. People's lives are consumed with just survival, with childcare, with everything else. But you've got to get down there and do it. The other thing I've been thinking about is this. I was reading some sort of it wasn't a headline, but it was a subheading or something about the guy that on Westminster Bridge in London, and I saw the subheading. It says suspect motivated, they think, by international terrorism. What does that mean? The guy got up one morning and said, wow, I think that international terrorism's a good idea. I'm going to go and drive my car into some people on a bridge over there. You know, it's insane. It's the media is again, it's the fake media, isn't it? Things don't take place in isolation. The reason things happen, we have to look into the reason things happen. You know, just like anything in life, that there's a history to them. Just like racism, there's a history to it. It doesn't exist because black people don't like white people, or Irish people don't like English people, or English people don't like Irish people. There's history there, and that's what causes situations to arise. And when you change the conditions, those situations can go away very easily. The thing is those situations are orchestrated. The reason they don't analyse why that occurred on Westminster Bridge is because the reason it occurred is because of British imperialism's role in the Middle East and capitalism's role throughout the world. That's why that occurs. And so you don't. I remember when I grew up during the 50s, well, actually 60s, but late 50s. I remember as far back when the Mau Mau were driving the British out of Kenya. All I heard was there were very few white people killed in that. Some farmers were killed in that by comparison. But it was a violent repression against the mostly Kikuyu that comprised the Mau Mau movement. And yet all that's in my memory is that, this white farmer was hacked to death. There was a reason for that, to try and generate a false narrative, a false understanding of what was going on there, that it wasn't an attempt by the people whose land it was to drive out invaders and colonialists. It was a hatred of white people, and I should fall on the side of, and English people actually predominantly, but and I should fall on their side. So that's another thing we have to really, if we want to find a solution to these things, we have to look at our own history. We have a great working class history in this country. We've got to look at our own history, and we've got to get off our asses, to put it bluntly. In the union, we accomplished a lot of things in my union. As a matter of fact, we had some socialists in my union, and the various groupings in my union. They were absolutely worthless to us in relation to fighting the boss. They just were of no. It's fine to go around saying you need socialist revolution, but until a huge section of the working class draws that conclusion, and you can help them draw that conclusion, but until a huge section of the working class draws that conclusion and is willing to fight for that conclusion, for what that means, then it's just mere rhetoric. And I remember when I was accused at work one time of by some members of a left organisation that were in my workplace of being a reformist and lying to workers, sowing in their minds the idea that capitalism can be reformed, because I fought for reformed. And my answer is, how can you expect your ideas to be respected by workers, or for those workers to follow your leadership to overthrow the system we live under, when you can't provide goddamn toilet paper in the toilet for them, where you can't fight for that extra few bucks of overtime that there wasn't in their check that week. It's through the struggle for reforms that workers learn eventually that they don't work, that we have to change society. We can help, revolutionaries can help with that. But to just go around talking about we need socialist revolution is just nonsense. So anyway, these were just a couple of things I was thinking about. In terms of the unions, you've got to get involved. You can push the leadership. People say that they'll never do anything. That's not true. They'll do certain things. They won't overthrow capitalism, that's for sure. But they will do certain things. At times they will do those things merely in order to hold back the movement. You've got to be conscious of these things, but you can force changes on the union leadership, and most importantly, you can change them yourself. We have to replace them. They're completely subservient to capital. They have the same worldview as the boss. You got this. Literally, it made me so angry this morning. You know, there's people going up and checking out their own stuff. They got two aisles open. That's designed. It's designed we get in the line, we get tired, people will blame the worker, you can't blame them, they have no power over that. They do, the union has certain influence over it, but the leadership is worthless, so you can't blame them. But they've constructed that dynamic, so you get angry at the worker, you go over there and you do your own, check out your own goods. It's the same in Britain with the National Health, that they defund it, or any socialised thing that we have. They defund it. It's understaffed. Any of these public social projects, they're understaffed. They're defunded. People get angry and they say, "Oh well, look, you know, we need a healthcare system that's private. We need a rail system that's private." It's all constructed, and we won't change it by whining about it. So anyway, I'm going to end this with a reading. I'm going to read a little piece from Lenin's pamphlet that he wrote after the war. Now, Lenin made mistakes. I don't believe Lenin was a god, but of course, like anybody that fought for working class people and against capitalism, he's demonized by the press, just like anyone. And it was in a little pamphlet he wrote after the revolution, so he had some experience. And it's an interesting comment, and I'll leave you with that, okay? All right. I'll be back in a second. Okay, I just want to leave you with this. It's a statement it's a piece from a pamphlet that Lenin wrote after the revolution. And when I first read it, it had a real profound effect on me in many ways. He talks about the fundamental laws of revolution, which are confirmed by all revolutions. And he says, "It is essential for revolution that the exploiters should not be able to live and rule in the old way. Only when the lower classes do not want the old way, and when the upper classes cannot carry on in the old way, only then can revolution triumph." And then he goes on, it follows that for revolution, it is essential that a majority of the workers, or at least a majority of the class-conscious thinking, politically active workers, should fully understand that revolution is necessary and be ready to sacrifice their lives for it. Secondly, that the ruling classes should be passing through a governmental crisis, which draws even the most backward masses into politics. That's just an excerpt from it, but why that was so important for me is that you get mostly sort of middle-class revolutionary type characters running around talking about revolutions as if they happen every day, and as if they happen simply because somebody gets an idea that we need a revolution, that they're very, very rare in history, and that certain conditions have to take place. And the reason I read it, it comes from I was not attracted to Lenin in any way or anything like that when I was younger. And like I say, Lenin made many mistakes, but everybody makes mistakes. As long as we learn from them, that's the crucial thing. I had the view that the Russian Revolution, for example, was not really a revolution, but was more like a coup d'etat, a few bunch of radicals and everything else. History is distorted, just like I learned in later life that perhaps the most battle of the Second World War, and I grew up in a military family, in Europe anyway, was not fought by the Americans or the British or the Allies, but in Stalingrad, where 1 million people died, and when the Russians opened up the Third Front. History is written by victors. We have nations, and history is all just like colonialism. I had to find out more about British colonialism myself, as opposed to learning it in schools in England. So anyway, that's what I felt like talking about today. So talk to you later. Richard Mellor, Facts for Working People.